I know that one of the hardest things to deal with if you're trying to practice martial arts and teach is that we know that a ton of people join the martial arts but never get very far. And so we have that saying that 3 out of 100 make black belt. But what's really disappointing is when the people who attain black belt end up leaving. I mean, they put in the time, they put in the effort. You'd think that they were the ones who would stay, but they leave. And as it often turns out, they leave the dojo, they don't leave martial arts. They actually end up training someplace else, something else. I'm Chris Thomas, and I want to help you keep your black belts. To get people to stay, to be involved, to commit, and in the case of a commercial school, to keep giving you money, what you need from them is a commitment to the system, to the group. They have to be invested not just in their own training, but in something larger than their own training, something larger than themselves. And here's a technique that is incredibly effective for not only creating retention among your black belts, but also increasing investment and helping them to advance at the same time. And it's surprisingly simple. To a certain extent, you may be doing something like this already. You may incorporate your black belts in the testing process. You may ask them to sit on a testing board for the lower ranks. And I want to say, don't just do this casually, but establish an official testing board within your school using your black belts to test your undergrad students. So as they're coming up through the ranks, they test in front of the board. Now, I don't recommend necessarily that every test is a board test. What I would suggest is you have, within the color belt ranks, maybe 3 tests that are board tests. All the other tests you're just going to manage as teacher. You'll just promote people however. You may test them, or you may just look at them and say, well, you're ready for your orange belt. But at certain points, and these would roughly represent, in the systems I came out of, green belt, and maybe high purple belt, and then brown belt. Like 3 kind of noteworthy steps along the way. But you just say, at these points, everyone who trains has to take the test in front of the board. And then, and this is the key, you get your black belts together, you help them see what it is that you're looking for, and then you give them the entire authority to make the decision. Now, you can sit with the board as well. In fact, that's a great idea. But you let your vote just be one vote. You don't override their decisions. You let them decide. You don't even tell them what you think. You start out by asking them, all right, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Let them give their input. Okay, what's your vote? Do you vote pass or fail? Do you vote pass or fail? And you go through the process like that, and their vote stands. If there's a tie, you become the tiebreaker. But you stay out of the business of overriding their decisions. Because what you're saying when you do this is you're saying that you value them and that you're giving them authority. You're not trying to hold on to the authority for yourself. And that turns people off if I'm always walking around trying to say, well, I'm the Grand Master. I want to give authority away to competent students of mine for them to do it. Now, recognizing that, as the master in the school, you still have to be present, even if you don't vote, even if you eliminated yourself as a voting part of the board, you still have to be there, because being there is an optic for the students. But by making this a burden for your black belts, they're now invested in the outcome. They're invested in the quality. And in fact, as you're training them to do this, I recommend that you follow a couple steps. Number 1, stress for them the importance of quality, and that what you're trying to do is establish quality control within the school. Number 2, have a clear testing format, which is the same every time. What this does is this assures that the testing process is consistent and that people keep taking the same test. 3, make sure within that testing format there are clear criteria. I also found it really convenient to us and useful to assign different black belts to focus on different areas of the testing process, so they weren't trying to look at everything. But that's really, really hard. So your job is to check out their kata, make sure that it's right, that it's both technically correct in that they're doing the moves right and they didn't forget anything, but also competent in terms of how they're doing the moves. They're doing them accurately and they're moving their bodies well in accordance with the rank they're at. And then maybe someone else is assigned to the job of you're going to evaluate how they do in another area, maybe in their free play, their free sparring, or whatever that component is, or in their two-person technique. You can keep doing this. I personally use this method in particular at Sandan because my group is not a single school, but a bunch of students scattered all over the place. So my rule is simple. I promote nobody to the rank of third dan. Everyone has to take the board test. And I sit on the board and I have my fourth, fifth, and sixth dans. They're the ones who make that decision. Now, we have some other elements built into that. I'll talk about that on some other occasion, the specifics of how we manage that and how we take care of any personality problems or deal with issues that are related to advancing martial artists. But the basic concept, I don't make a promotion to third dan ever on my own, ever. I always do it with my board. And so that means that the board knows they're invested in that outcome and they say, wow, this matters. We're important. We have something to say. Our job is to help maintain the quality. You do that, you have them invested not just in themselves as martial artists in their own training, but you also have them invested in the group as a whole. I said I was going to give you two keys. The second key is this. You have to teach them more than they know. All right, so I understand the problem. If you spend all your time trying to bring in new beginners, all your time trying to train white belts and yellow belts and gold belts and green belts, you don't get a chance to develop yourself as a martial artist. This is actually part of the reason why I consider myself fortunate. I never expected to be teaching, and so I just spent all my time training. And when I ended up teaching, I had a lot to teach because I'd spent all my time training. I wasn't stuck having to teach that beginner stuff, you know, how to make a fist and how to keep your elbow from flopping out over and over and over again. I was actually able to come to people who were already black belts and say, well, let me teach you. And I had a depth of knowledge. But if you're just running a school and you're trying desperately just to bring in new students and to teach those white belts and those gold belts, you end up becoming an expert at getting people up to first degree black belt, but you're a complete novice at getting them past that. And it's not your fault. But it is a place where I can help you. And it's surprisingly easy. You see, because I've been the guy who's been doing this for so long and can present a great deal of depth, what you can actually do is you can take one of my video instructions where I'm teaching a technique and explaining it on video, and you can literally shape an entire black belt workout around just one or two lessons that I offer. And you just take that, you can just teach it yourself. I mean, you learn it, watch the video, pay attention to the details, and then you go and teach. What happens is, when your students reach first degree black belt, instead of just saying, well, now here's your form for second dan, here's your form for third dan, they come in and you teach them depth. You teach them something deeper, something more profound, and they look at that and they go, oh my goodness, there's more to this art. Now, by the way, what that means is I'm suggesting that you have a regular black belt only workout where there's some kind of information that you're not sharing with the rest of the class. It's not just a we get together and work really hard because we're committed guys and pound on each other, but I mean, I'm going to teach you stuff that no one else is learning. I'm going to show you material that they're not getting. That's the key. On the next video, I'm going to show you actually how to take one of my video instructions, and I'll show you the technique for turning that into a full class. So I'm Chris Thomas, and these are some reflections from the MasterClass. Thanks for watching. Now go train.